Okay, I want you to try something for me. Close your eyes for a second. No, seriously, just for a moment. I want you to imagine the industrial north of England. But not, the way it looks on a postcard, but how it feels. It's gritty. The air isn't just air. It's thick with steam. You can smell wet metal, maybe some rust. And in the distance, there's this rhythmic, just relentless clanging of factories. It's heavy, it's loud, and it feels like the ground is actually shaking under your feet.
That's a very specific, very evocative mood to start with.
Right. But here's the kicker. Take that feeling, that sheer physical weight, that dread, that power, and imagine trying to turn that into dance music, into something people actually want to move to on a Saturday night.
It sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? But I mean, that tension is exactly where we're living today. We're taking a deep dive into the work of Jamie Roberts, better known to the techno world as Blawan.
A legend, a titan of UK techno.
Absolutely. But looking at the stack of research we have today, specifically this incredible retrospective column from Monumental Movement Records called Blawan, The Pleasure of Steel and the Flesh Deep in the Night. This isn't just a story about a DJ. It's about something the sources call industrial memory.
The Pleasure of Steel. That title alone is just chef's kiss. It sounds like a sci-fi novel.
It really does. And we're going to be pulling from that article plus some technical diagrams of his studio setup, which, let me tell you, look more like schematic drawings for a spaceship than a music studio, and a deep look at his discography. The mission today is to figure out how a producer takes these cold, abrasive sounds and makes them feel, well, paradoxically human.
That's the part that gets me. How do you make a steel beam sound like a heartbeat?
Exactly. We're going to trace his evolution from his post-dubstep roots to becoming a master of modular synthesis. We're looking at how Blawan reclaimed the gravity of techno in a world that is becoming increasingly digital and, well, weightless.
So let's go back to the beginning. We started with that image of the industrial north. And that wasn't just me being dramatic. That's literally his origin story.
It is. Roberts grew up in the UK, and the source material suggests he basically grew up inhaling the echoes of those northern industrial zones. Sheffield is the key city here.
Sheffield. Now, for the listener who might not be a geography nerd or a music historian, why is Sheffield so important?
Oh, Sheffield is sacred ground. Historically, it's the steel city. It made the armor plate for warships, the cutlery on your table. But musically, that industrial heritage, it just bled into the electronic scene. It's the home of Cabaret Voltaire, Warp Records, the Black Dog.
The giants.
The absolute giants. And that lineage is crucial because Sheffield's electronic music has always been about combining the rhythm of labor, literally the sound of work, with the breathing of the city. The source has this amazing description of Blawan's specific sound signature. It says his music has the pressure of damp air and the sound of striking iron.
Pressure of damp air. I love that. It's like you don't just hear the music, you can feel the humidity of it. It's sticky.
It's a playback of industrial memory. And what's fascinating is that when Blawan started breaking out, or around 2011, this is the Bola EP era on R&S Records, he didn't try to polish that grit away.
2011 was a weird time, though, wasn't it? Dubstep had kind of exploded, gone mainstream, and then, poof, imploded. The UK scene was sort of looking around going, okay, what now?
Precisely. The club scene was emerging from that post-dubstep chaos, and it was desperate for something with substance, something with weight. And here comes Blawan with this new heaviness. But here's the detail that really struck me in the notes. Even back then, he wasn't just working inside a computer.
Ah, this is the tactile thing the article talks about.
Yes. Most producers, especially starting out there in a digital audio workstation, they're clicking a mouse, drawing lines on a grid. Blawan wanted to grab the sound. He was using Roland rhythm machines and analog filters. The source emphasizes that for him, it was about grabbing sound with fingers and knobs.
It makes a difference, doesn't it? It's the difference between typing a letter to someone and actually handwriting it with a pen that scratches the paper. You can hear the friction.
You can hear the struggle. It's that physical sensation of playing electronic noise that gave his tracks that heat. He wasn't programming them. He was wrestling with them.
Okay, so he's got this heavy physical sound established. But then we hit 2012, and we have to talk about the track. You know the one I mean.
I think everyone who has ever stepped foot in a dark warehouse knows the one you mean.
Why they hide their bodies under my garage.
The monster in the garage.
First of all, best title ever, maybe. It's a horror movie in one sentence. But the sound, I mean, the source describes it as having a distorted vocal sample that sounds like a ghost groaning in a basement.
Coupled with a beat that repeats with what the article calls insanity bordering obsession. It's just relentless. It doesn't change up every 4 bars to keep you entertained. It just hammers you.
But here's the paradox, and I think this is why Blawan is such a genius. On paper, a groaning ghost and an obsessive industrial beat sounds like a nightmare. It sounds like something you'd run away from. But people went nuts for it.
They did. And the source has this fantastic quote from Ben UFO, who is the boss of Hessel Audio and a real tastemaker in the scene. He recalls the first time he heard it in a club, he said, "The club felt like it froze for a second. Fear and pleasure coming at the same time."
Wow, that moment where the whole room just stops and goes, wait, are we safe?
Exactly. And then the drop hits, and it's violent euphoria. It revived a sense of emotionless emotion in techno. It wasn't happy, it wasn't sad, it was just pure, raw intensity. It proved that you could be terrified and thrilled simultaneously on a dance floor.
Which, if you think about it, is kind of the appeal of a roller coaster. Or a horror movie. It's that controlled danger.
It cemented his reputation instantly. But, and this is credit to him as an artist, he didn't just stay there. He didn't spend the next 10 years making Why They Hide Their Bodies Part 2. He pivoted to something even more industrial.
We're talking about Karen now, his duo project with Pariah.
Yes. And if you've ever seen photos of Karen playing live, or if you look at the technical writer provided in our source material, it's comical.
It doesn't look like a DJ booth. It looks like a bomb disposal unit's workbench.
It really does. It's just piles of cables, nonstop rhythm machines, flashing lights, gear stacked on gear, at a workspace vibe rather than a performance vibe. And the source makes a really insightful comparison here. It says, Karen isn't performing music, they are forging it.
Forging. Like blacksmiths again. Back to the steel.
Exactly. Surgeon, another absolute legend in techno, observed them from the side of the stage once. He said it felt like being in a steel mill with sparks flying, the heat, the noise, the intensity. But, and this is the key, he looked at the audience and their faces were gentle.
That is such a cool contrast. You've got this factory of noise on stage, two guys sweating over machines, but it's producing this gentleness in the crowd.
It connects back to that idea of industrial memory. They even founded a label called SheWorks, and everything about it emphasized this labor-intensive physical nature of sound. In a digital world where everything is easy, you press a button and a song plays, seeing two guys struggle with machines to make a beat, I think the audience respects the work. It grounds the music.
It makes it real. So we have the early tactile stuff, we have the monster hit, we have the live forging of Karen, but then we move to 2018 and we see an evolution towards albums. Wet Will Always Dry.
A brilliant title.
It is. And the source points out that it implies a cycle. You know, things get wet, they dry, but it's almost like an incomplete circulation of human emotion.
The music on that album is very stoic, very stripped back. But the source notes that human emotion seeps into the gaps. When you strip everything away, those little moments of silence or texture become incredibly emotionally charged.
But then, the timeline hits a wall. The 2020s arrive, the pandemic hits, the clubs shut down, the factories go silent, and Blawan's sound shifts again.
This is a pivotal moment. For a guy whose music was so rooted in the physical space of a sweaty, dark warehouse, the lockdown forced a massive introspection. The tracks from this era, like Underbelly, became softer.
Softer being a relative term for Blawan, of course. We're not talking acoustic guitars here.
No, definitely not. But the source describes it as a shift, where the hardware noise starts to sound somehow gentle. He found human breathing inside the machines.
This is where we need to geek out on the gear for a minute, because the source gives us a peek into his studio diagram from 2020 to 2025, and he moved heavily into modular synthesis. Now, for the listener who hears modular synth and just thinks expensive bleep-bloop machine, can we break down why this matters?
Absolutely. So think of a standard synthesizer or computer plug-in like a pre-built toy car. You push it, it rolls, it works great, but it always looks and acts like that car. Modular synthesis is like having a box of loose gears, wheels, engines, and wires. You have to build the car from scratch every time you want to drive it.
So you're literally patching the electricity from one bit to another to make a sound happen.
Exactly. You are routing voltage. And because of that, it's unstable. It's influenced by the heat in the room, the quality of the power, maybe even the humidity.
So the damp air of Sheffield actually affects the machine.
In a way, yes. The list of gear he's using is intense. He's got the Moog DFAM for metallic percussion, Make Noise Mask for modulation, the Verbose Complex VCO. But the names matter less than the workflow. The source calls it the one-take philosophy.
This blew my mind. He records live.
Yes, he records live into his interface without overdubbing. He isn't sitting there with a mouse, moving a snare drum 1 millimeter to the left to make it perfect. He sets the machine up, gets the ecosystem running, and then he communes with it.
So if he makes a mistake...
It's on the record.
Yeah.
Or he has to start the whole thing over.
Yeah.
But usually, those mistakes, the little flutters, the drifts in pitch, those are what give it life. That's the breadth he's talking about. A computer repeats things perfectly forever. A modular synth is never perfectly stable. It drifts. It feels like a living organism.
That is a perfect segue to his most recent work. We're up to 2025 now. The album is Sick Elixir. The source calls this a heavy emotional record.
It is. By 2025, Blawan isn't just making club bangers. He's dealing with heavy personal themes. The source mentions the loss of friends, conflicts with addiction, the struggles of getting older in this scene. These aren't abstract industrial concepts anymore. This is real, messy human life.
And you can hear it in the tracks. There's one called Rabbit Hole, which is described as having light shining through, and another called NOS, which is just a torrent of sub-bass.
The contrast there is what matters. He's exploring the boundary between coldness and passion. It's no longer just about the scary monster in the garage. It's about the struggle to survive the garage.
Which brings us to the big question the source material poses. In a world where clubs are dissolving into digital spaces, we've got TikTok raves, metaverse parties, everything is streaming. What is Blawan actually doing? Why does he insist on this heavy, physical, difficult gear?
He is reclaiming gravity. That's the key word the source uses. In a weightless digital world, Blawan creates sounds that touch.
He sounds that touch. I really like that. It's tactile audio.
There's a quote from an anonymous DJ in the notes that sums it up perfectly. There is a hand inside the sound. Or look at what Pariah said about him. He looks like he works in a factory, but actually, he's a poet.
A poet of the steel mill.
It implies that he isn't just making noise, he's organizing chaos into something that feels like a prayer. The source actually uses that word, a prayer, within the destruction.
That is profound. You know, usually when we talk about techno, people think robots or future, the year 3000, but this suggests that Blawan's techno is actually about being incredibly present physically right now.
Yes, it's a survival ritual.
Yeah.
Dancing to this kind of noise, especially a track from Sick Elixir, isn't about escaping reality to some fantasy land. It's about confronting the hardness of the world, the concrete, the metal, the noise, and finding the warmth inside it. The source says he plays inorganic matter to reveal organic warmth.
It's the ultimate alchemy, turning metal into flesh.
And think about how necessary that is. We spend all day swiping on glass screens, smooth surfaces, frictionless digital interactions. Blawan offers us rust. He offers us friction, vibration, weight. It reminds you that you have a body.
Sound is the shadow of the body. That's one of his quotes, right?
It is. And it suggests that you can't have one without the other. If the sound has no weight, no shadow, then maybe we lose a bit of our own substance.
So we've gone from the steam of Sheffield to the monster in the garage, through the factory floor of Karen, and into the complex, breathing, modular surgery of 2025. It's been quite a journey.
It really has. Blawan stands as a testament to the idea that technology doesn't have to be cold. It entirely depends on who is touching it.
Exactly. It's not the machine. It's the hand on the knob.
And the heart behind the hand.
Well said. Listen, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought. We've talked a lot about the line between human and machine today. Blawan, he blurs that line until it disappears.
He does.
So here's something for you to mull over as you go about your day, maybe staring at your phone or typing on your laptop. As our world becomes more digital and our interactions more screen-based, Blawan seems to be asking us a crucial question. Can sound still remain human? And if the machines are the ones breathing now, are we the ones becoming cold?
That is a chilling thought.
Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Thank you.
See you next time.